Welcome, dear reader, to a tale as old as time itself, an epic of beginnings, choices, and a whole lot of figuring out what it means to be human. You've probably heard the story of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, but today, we're going to dive a little deeper, peeling back the layers to reveal a narrative that's not just about the fall, but about the rise, the growth, and the humor in our human condition. Get ready for a journey that's both motivational and inspirational, with a sprinkle of humor to keep things light. Because, after all, even the most serious stories can teach us to smile. In the beginning, there was light, water, land, and all the creatures you could imagine. But the crowning achievement of this creation was Adam, crafted from dust, given life by the breath of the Creator. Adam was in awe. Imagine waking up in the most beautiful garden you've ever seen, where everything is fresh, new, and bursting with potential. Adam had it all. A paradise with no worries, no bills to pay, and a daily to-do list that involved naming the animals. It was a pretty sweet gig, but there was one thing Adam didn't have: companionship. Sure, the animals were great, but let's be honest, you can only talk to a zebra for so long before you crave a deeper conversation. Seeing that Adam was getting a bit lonely, the Creator decided to spice things up. And so, Eve was brought into the picture, a woman crafted from one of Adam's ribs, which is probably why she always knew how to rib him in just the right way. Adam woke up from a deep sleep, and there she was, Eve, the first woman, and the first real conversation partner. Adam's jaw practically hit the ground. "This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh," he said, likely in the most poetic voice he could muster. Eve just smiled, probably wondering why Adam looked so surprised. After all, she was just as new to this whole existence thing as he was. Life in the Garden of Eden was nothing short of idyllic. Every day was a new adventure, exploring the lush, vibrant world around them. The garden had everything: trees with fruit more delicious than anything you've ever tasted, rivers sparkling like diamonds, and animals that were more curious than dangerous. Adam and Eve were given dominion over everything. They were the king and queen of the garden, and with that title came a sense of responsibility. Don't eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, the Creator had instructed them. Simple enough, right? But we all know how curiosity works, especially when it's mixed with the allure of the forbidden. One fine day, while Eve was strolling through the garden, admiring the flowers and wondering if Adam would ever get better at naming animals, platypus? Really? She encountered a serpent. Now, this was no ordinary serpent. It was crafty, sly, and could talk, which was unusual even by Eden standards. Did God really say, "You must not eat from any tree in the garden?" the serpent asked, with a tone that was as smooth as butter. Eve, curious as ever, replied, "We may eat fruit from the trees in the garden, but God did say, 'You must not eat fruit from the tree that is in the middle of the garden, and you must not touch it, or you will die.'" The serpent chuckled, probably rolling its eyes. "You will not certainly die," it said. "For God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." Now, Eve wasn't one to make rash decisions, but the idea of gaining wisdom was tempting. Plus, the fruit looked delicious. She took a bite, savoring the sweetness that was tinged with just a hint of rebellion. Adam, who had joined her, also took a bite, partly out of curiosity, partly out of hunger, and partly because he didn't want to miss out on anything Eve was doing. Immediately, things started to change. Suddenly, Adam and Eve realized they were naked, which, in their innocence, they hadn't noticed before. Panic set in. Fig leaves were hastily fashioned into makeshift clothing, and for the first time, the garden felt a little less welcoming. When the Creator came walking in the garden in the cool of the day, Adam and Eve hid, which was a bit like trying to hide from your shadow. "Where are you?" the Creator called, not because he didn't know, but because he wanted them to confront their actions. Adam, ever the master of deflection, said, "I heard you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid." The Creator, with a tone that was both gentle and stern, asked, "Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree that I commanded you not to eat from?" Adam, in a move that set the tone for many an excuse to come, pointed to Eve. "The woman you put here with me, she gave me some fruit from the tree, and I ate it." Eve, not to be outdone in the blame game, pointed to the serpent. "The serpent deceived me, and I ate." The consequences were swift but not without hope. The serpent was cursed, Eve was told she would experience pain in childbirth, and Adam was told he would have to work the ground for his food. They were banished from the Garden of Eden, but not without the Creator's provision. He made garments for them out of animal skins, ensuring they were prepared for the journey ahead. Adam and Eve left the garden, not as a perfect pair, but as a couple who had learned something about life, choices, and the weight of responsibility. They had gained the knowledge they sought, but with it came the realization that wisdom isn't just about knowing. It's about living with the consequences of what you know. Outside the garden, life was hard, but it was life nonetheless. Adam and Eve grew closer, not just out of necessity, but because they learned to lean on each other. They laughed at their mistakes, learned from them, and continued to build a life together. They were the first family, the first to understand that life's challenges are what make the victories so sweet. Their story is not just about the fall of man, it's about the rise of humanity, about how we learn, grow, and find humor even in the toughest of times. Adam and Eve's journey is a reminder that every ending is a new beginning, and that no matter how far we fall, there is always a path forward. As we close this chapter on Adam and Eve, let's take a moment to reflect on our own lives. We all face temptations, make mistakes, and sometimes find ourselves in situations that seem beyond repair. But just like Adam and Eve, we can find hope, growth, and even humor in our journey. So, the next time you're faced with a tough choice, remember, you're not alone. Every challenge is an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to become a better version of yourself. And if you ever find yourself reaching for that metaphorical forbidden fruit, take a step back, laugh at the situation, and choose the path that leads to growth. If this story has resonated with you, take a moment to share it with someone who might need a little inspiration today. Remember, life's greatest lessons often come from the simplest stories. Keep growing, keep learning, and most importantly, keep smiling, even when life throws you a curveball. After all, every day is a new beginning, a chance to write your own story.